What the hell was that? Let's discuss.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
On Cardinals, Alex Clancy here. Follow me on Twitter, Clancy's Corner. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen. Free wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. I reiterate, what in the wide world of hell was that? The Cardinals lose 42-14. Uninspired, didn't show up mentally, physically, emotionally. Why did they even show up? Why was the game even played? Why didn't they just sim it? That was one of the most embarrassing outputs I've ever seen since, being in sports radio in Phoenix since 2011. What the hell was that? They got outplayed on every facet, every level, every phase, every way. There is not one, and I mean this, not one redeeming quality that we could take from that 42-14 loss. 4 rushing touchdowns, 6 total touchdowns for the Commanders. Jaden Daniels looked poised. His jersey was cleaner at the end of the game than it was before the start of it. The Cardinals got 0 pressure. They were completely outmatched. Cliff Kingsbury called a very good game. But it's a little bit easier to, and this is not a slight, Cliff Kingsbury called a very good offensive game. The Cardinals could get 0 pressure on Jaden Daniels. They could not get off the field on 3rd down. Kyler Murray didn't run the ball. Marvin Harrison Jr. was forgotten for the majority of the game after the first quarter. We're starting to see the same scripts over and over again. So in today's show, I will discuss the offensive woes in the second segment. The shambles that is the defense in the final segment. But most importantly, Monti Ossenfort and Jonathan Gannon need to decide what the future of this organization is going to be. And while I'm not jumping off yet, let me give the disclaimer now. I'm not having the uncomfortable conversation about Kyler Murray yet. I'm not having any conversation about Drew Petzing, Nick Rallis, or Jonathan Gannon, period. But one conversation I'm going to begin with. Even though I said this entire offseason, going into the beginning of the season, that 2025 is the year. And you could always say, well, yeah, the next year is always the best year because there's no expectations for this year if it's always the year after. I get that. I've had in-depth conversations with people on both sides of that discussion. And you also can't you can't do a complete overhaul on a roster in 2 full cycles of off seasons and drafts. You just can't do it. And Monti Ossenfort decided to draft a wide receiver number 4 overall. He's been fantastic. 4 touchdowns in the last 3 games. He's been fantastic. And the Cardinals could have bolstered the roster more if they were to have traded back. It slowed down the rebuild process by drafting Marvin Harrison Jr. for roster construction as a whole. Marvin Harrison Jr. has been fantastic. That's not what it's about. It's, the decision to draft a wide receiver instead of trading back where you could have got a lion's share of first-round picks this year and next year. That's a decision. He made the decision. The defense has suffered for it. Now, Darius Robinson, B.J. Ojulari out doesn't help. Monti Ossenfort needs to make the decision of what this season is going to be. They haven't even come close to playing the toughest part of their schedule yet. They're 4 weeks in. Up until their bye week, it is just terror. They got the 49ers next week. They got Green Bay the week after in Lambeau. Chargers, Miami. So Monti Ossenfort needs to sit down and figure out if he's going to let this version of the defense be the final product of the defense in 2024? If he is, the Cardinals are going to win 3 games. And it's not the defense's fault. The offense, aside from playing against a depleted Rams team in week 2 and a good first half in week 1, while scoring on every single one of their opening drives in 4 weeks, in the first 4 weeks, 28 points. The Cardinals offense is lost. And today was so obvious that something is amiss. Say it's Kyler Murray? Sure. Played terribly today. Say it's Drew Petzing? Sure. Terrible play calling today. Say it's Kelvin Beachum? It's not. He got beat once. He's been fine. You never plan for an offensive lineman to go down, especially right after signing him. Jonah Williams may not come back this year. We don't know. For the Cardinals to compete, the offense needs to be near perfect. The offense cannot take multiple quarters off in a row like they have the last 2 weeks. They can't do it. They looked bad today. They looked bad. They were on the field for 26 minutes. Not nearly enough. Kyler Murray, 142 passing yards, 1 rush attempt for 2 yards. Can't happen. Everything that I said this entire last week that the Cardinals need to avoid, that they need to go on the offensive, that they need Kyler Murray to run the ball more to keep opposing defenses honest, that they need to get some pressure on Jaden Daniels. None of it happened. But the most important thing that didn't happen today, they didn't play with any sort of urgency. This was the Cliff Kingsbury-led Arizona Cardinals today. This is what we experienced for the better part of 5 seasons, especially 2021 and 2022. Pretty talented roster. This is a much more talented offense. And just no urgency, no leadership, no drive, no passion, nothing. In a game that determines how close to a playoff path the Cardinals would get. If they win today, 2-2, they're well in the picture still. I know it's early. 1-3, and that kind of 1-3 on the heels of going toe-to-toe with the Bills, punishing the Rams. And the Lions, who made the NFC Championship game last year, and then you come and lay an egg like that at home? What the hell was that? Let's talk about the offense a little bit more next. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by the GameTime app. So, GameTime, awesome. They've got a new feature called GameTime Picks. It makes getting tickets for your favorite live events easier than ever. It filters out the fluff, so you just see the great deals on seats. Okay? The best part about GameTime and the app, there's so many different things. I mean, they've got all-in pricing, number one. This is a toggle feature where you toggle to all-in pricing. You search the event you want, it'll just show you the total amount, where you don't have to well, how many fees? What about all that? It shows you the total amount. It's awesome. The seat views. I talk about this every time. If you don't know what the vantage point looks like in the section or row of any sporting event that you may, or concert, comedy show, whatever it is, you can click on it and it'll show you what the vantage point is before you buy them. So you know exactly what you're going to see from those seats. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, redeem code or use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account or redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download GameTime today. What time is it? Game time. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. Please go to the YouTube channel, search Locked On Arizona Cardinals. Hit the subscribe button, man. Turn notifications on. I haven't been this it's like you're starting from square one. And it's one game, okay? But the offense hasn't looked good for the second half of any game this year outside of playing against a depleted Rams team. They put up 10 points in the last two halves combined. In the last two second halves combined. 3 points last week, 7 points this week. And even like they had two good drives. Opening drive of the game where they scored a touchdown, Marvin Harrison Jr., and then the last drive to end the third quarter. It's like, where the hell has that been? Gave the ball to James Conner, cut it to 13, and then they just got lit up in the fourth. James Conner looked fine, 18 for 104 and a touchdown. The leading receiver was Marvin Harrison Jr., 5 for 45. I think he had 3 for 21 and a touchdown in the first quarter. I'm not going to have the conversation yet. But that's a shift from I'm not going to have the conversation because it's unnecessary to have about the guy saying downside hike. I'm not doing it yet. I think it's an overreaction. He didn't play well today. He didn't play well in the second half last week. Trey McBride being out hurt, it wasn't great, but it's so much bigger than that. The thing that I could not understand today, it seemed like, and it probably ended with 80% of the Cardinals ran the ball on first down. And while in theory, yeah, 2nd and 7 is a lot better than second and 10. 2nd and 5 is a lot better than 2nd and 10. When everybody in the building knows you're going to run the ball, try something different. It's like I tweeted out, it's like they're playing Canadian-style football. They're playing 3-down football because they're always starting at 2nd and 10. And I cannot understand how clunky the offensive flow is. Kyler's had time. He took a couple bad sacks again today. And one rush for 2 yards is unacceptable. I don't know if they're trying to keep him healthy. I don't know what it is. What I do know is what makes Kyler Murray great is his ability to do both, keeping opposing defenses on their heels in regards to which he's going to do on any specific play. If he's not running the ball, they've got a 5'10" pocket passer. And that's not ideal. It wasn't that the Cardinals beat themselves today on offense. It's that it looked like, aside from the opening drive, adjustments just weren't an option. The fact that Kyler Murray not having 10 yards per completion, it's kind of like the benchmark, right? 20 for 24, 225, and a touchdown. 16 for 25, 200 yards and a touchdown. 16 completions for 140 yards. There's no world, especially when the Cardinals were playing catch-up, that he should only throw for 140 yards. They ran the ball too much. And yes, there are receipts everywhere. I said the Cardinals need to be a run-first team. I did say that, and I still believe that. The main reason why is so they stay on the field longer. If something isn't working, you need to abandon at least a chunk of that thought process. The thing that's missing, and it is so, I don't understand why I have to say this again. Kyler Murray not running the ball takes away the entire element of surprise of this offense. Kyler Murray not running the ball takes away the entire element of surprise for this offense. Something's wrong. Obviously, thank you. You come here for the hashtag analysis. Something's wrong. And what shook me to my core today, like I still think they'll be somewhat fine. I think this is more of an exception to the rule than the absolute rule. But what shook me to my core today was the same feeling I had from a couple years back when I used to say, every day you'll know this, the only thing worse than having a problem is not knowing what the problem is. And I don't know what the problem is on offense. They need to figure it out very quickly. Otherwise, we will be having uncomfortable conversations after next week. I promise you that. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. The defense was terrible. Yeah, well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about something else that's not positive next. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by FanDuel. One thing that is positive, FanDuel. You can start with a big return, FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. I mean, information. That's all you want. And FanDuel gives you all of it right at your fingertips. And on top of that, you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. FanDuel, they want, they've got the information, they got live play-by-play, they got latest stats, and on top of all of it, one $5 bet gets you $200 in bonus bets, your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. It's that eerie, and I'm not the only one, I know. It's that eerie feeling of like, we've been here before watching this team. Haven't felt that even last year when they lost games. It's not about losing. I mean, it is, but it's not about how they lost today. I'm not having the conversations yet. And I don't think it's necessary yet. I'm twitching over here. I don't think it's necessary. Let's just say a couple bright spots. And I said there's no redeeming qualities. The timing ball, the timing route, like Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr., when they linked up today, look good. Look good. The timing routes were there. The 4th and 12 that I 100% thought they should have punted. But to keep the momentum going, that's ended up resulting in a touchdown. The timing routes from Marvin Harrison Jr. and Kyler Murray were there today. Garrett Williams, fantastic interception, super athletic. He's going to be fine. That's about it. James Conner looked fine. A lot of it was, Washington's playing prevent defense with 5 minutes left in the third quarter. But he looked spry, got in the end zone, fine. The defense as a whole looked terrible. And I'll even compare it to last year. The Cardinals defense starting last season always stepped up to the challenge, even if they were David and Goliath was on the other side, which is what the majority of last season was. There was no heart today. There was nothing. Jalen Thompson had one of his worst games as an Arizona Cardinal. Dennis Gardeck came back to earth. I told you, that's Dennis Gardeck as an elite pass rusher that we've seen for the first 2 weeks. That's not a thing. David Collins, nothing. No, the interior of the defensive line probably gets the Razzie today as the worst position group. No pressure. Zero pressure. They gashed the Cardinals. They gashed the Cardinals on the ground. Gashed. What is that? 216 yards rushing. 216 yards rushing. They did whatever they wanted. They could not get off the field on third down. 9 for 12 on third down, Washington was. And a couple of them were large chunk third downs. Everything I said the Cardinals can't do today happened. And what the uncomfortable conversation to be had with this that I won't wait for is, it looks like there's no hope in sight to trust the defense. And I don't think that's just a thing. The Cardinals offense is going to have to be the best defense for the Cardinals. I know it's a stupid sentence, but the Cardinals' time of possession is going to have to be their best defense this year because the defense ain't it. We'll see what happens when Darius Robinson comes back. We'll see if he's going to be activated off the IR this week to play in week 5. See if it'll be week 6, whatever it is. The defense cannot be trusted. It's just what it is. So they're going to have to go back to the drawing board. Sure, opportunistic, maybe make some flash plays. 9 for 12 on third downs is just, you can't do it. You can't do it. That's what I was talking about on Thursday and Friday of this past week. 3rd and 9, Jaden Daniels terrifies me. This terrifies me. The secondary, awful. Starling Thomas is not a starting NFL corner. He's not. Max Melton, we'll see. It's tough to see, Kamari Lassiter and Kool-Aid McKinstry playing well and Max Melton struggling. He's a rookie. Cornerback is the toughest position to play in football outside of quarterback, in my opinion. And I did say going into the season, I'm not saying this because I'm to make me right. I wish I didn't have to have this conversation in a negative stance. The cornerback room is going to be the most directly correlated to wins and losses for the Cardinals. Sure, it goes hand in hand with the pass rush, but the cornerback room, Sean Murphy-Bunting played terribly. Terrible. Large chunk pass interference call on a ball that was overthrown. Didn't even have to touch the guy. There was no way he was getting to that ball. Completely lost the ball. Had to play the man. Dragged him down at the 5. Ended up in a touchdown. This has nothing to do with Cliff Kingsbury, it burning. I don't care. Cliff called a great game today. He did exactly what the Cardinals did to the Rams when they were depleted. He's like, you know what? I'm an offensive coordinator in the NFL. If you give me something like that to play against, I'm going to eat you up. And he did. Kudos to him. The no positive in sight as of now is a tough pill to swallow because it's happening a lot earlier than expected. Yes, they held the Lions to 20 points last week, which was good. So I'm not saying the defense is going to give up 40 burger every week for the rest of the year. What I'm saying is any sort of positive movement coming from the defensive side of the ball is a bonus. It can't be relied upon. And the offense needs to do a much better job of going and doing what they're constructed to do, which is be one of the more high-powered offenses in the NFL. And none of that happened today. None of it. So while it's not the end, everybody take a breath, everybody relax. The thing that terrified me most today wasn't that it happened. It's how it happened and the fact that the offense has a problem and we don't know what it is. Could it be Kyler Murray? Sure. Could it be Drew Petzing? Maybe. Sure. What is it? There's no clear indicator of what the problem is. And that is a massive, massive problem. And it's not something that's going to happen in perpetuity. That's just after today. It's like, well, back to the drawing board, boys. Let's see what can happen at Levi Stadium in San Francisco next week. I will leave you with this. I was going to wait to discuss this, but I've never been a sell the team Michael Bidwell guy. I haven't. Family business. Spend your money. Spend your money. That should be the thing, the biggest takeaway from today. Spend it. Spend it all. Make this defense better if you want to win more than 3 games this year. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Regardless of all that, remember, without you, there is no me. I'll talk to you tomorrow.